What's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to today's market analysis and trade recap segment for Wednesday, October the 29th. And this was actually the first trade that we've taken all week, and we happened to win it. It was a 2RR 16 tick win on ES. So nothing crazy. It is below our typical win size, simply because the overall volatility and movement on today's morning price action was not as high as I would have wanted. But as you can see, we have FOMC over here, and that's typical on FOMC days. We do have lower volume and volatility on the early market. In my opinion, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not tradable. It simply means that we're not going to see as big of moves as compared to typical days, because a lot of big market participants are waiting for FOMC, post FOMC, or even perhaps the earnings, which we had Microsoft, Meta, Google, and eBay, and we also had Starbucks as well. So that's the reason, or that's likely the reason that there was low volume accounted for here today. But once again, it still worked out with our strategy. It may not work with other people's strategy, but in our case, it did happen to work out pretty nicely. So let's go ahead and get started with the entire market analysis segment, and let's see if we missed any trades. If we have not missed any trades, while we're going through it, we're going to analyze the trade that we have taken. Essentially, let me just give you a quick rundown as to our pre-market game plan, right? First, as you know, starting of this week or Sunday market open, we saw futures push up, creating this big gap. They gapped up pretty extensively, and now we're seeing, and after that, like on Monday, I actually wanted price to come in and fill that gap. That did not happen. We did not have anything to validate that. No trades on Monday. Tuesday, we weren't even on the charts, I'm gonna be honest. And we're here today, where we've seen price already make this extension away from the gap fill, because typically when gaps do get filled, we don't see this continuation of action like we've been seeing. You typically see a lot more attempts to try and fill the gap. But in our sense, all the retracements that we've been seeing, they've been pretty small and nothing significant. And we're seeing movement upwards in terms of demand zones as well. So for me, I wasn't really keen on a single bias. I didn't have any strong bias on the day, of course. But if I were to take a trade, I would take it towards where the nearest significant liquidity is sitting out on Bookmap, and also where we're seeing a trend on a lower time frame chart. And it's going to be essentially the same thing here on NQ. And yeah, I mean, if everything before this is our price action, this is FOMC, and with FOMC comes major volume. So with that being said, let's get straight into it, right? And I hopped on the markets around 9:15 a.m. today. I wasn't there before, so I want to see if there was anything I missed earlier in the market session. If not, we'll just go over a trade. So I'm trying to see what happened market open. We have this here. This is 7 a.m. So 7 to 8. Okay. So coming into market open right at 8:30, what seems to have happened was that these lows got swept. This low liquidity got swept. And honestly, hold on. Yeah, that would be this level right here. Oh, wait. You saw this level of liquidity get swept, right upon market open. And we see this big wick occurring. that in itself is a pretty good signal that we're gonna head and take the upper liquidity, if of course order flow validates it, but that's simply just an idea that showed up from what we've been seeing, right? So one thing we do notice, price went down, tapped into that lower liquidity region right at 8:30 a.m. You can see this here on the footprint chart as well. But let's see what happened here on Bookmap at that time. Let's see. Right now, liquidity, distribution of liquidity is quite all over the place. It's loading. Okay, yeah, I mean, we see a big spike down. Was there any liquidity on the downside? We see that get taken out prior to market open 6:30. Let's see. We don't really notice anything key like up here. So yeah, I mean, we did come in, we did take out this region right here, 6938, which does seem to have some liquidity at 6938. And it does seem to align with this liquidity level to a decent extent. We swept it, we started seeing buying action occur. Still, I want Bookmap to clear up a bit more before any trades are taken, because all these heat map flushes, I don't want to get myself involved in all this noise. I want to focus on the significant metrics that are being shown. See, right now, it looks to be all over the place. And I do not want that. And once again, it does look all over the place. Why? Because we have low volatility, low volume, which is causing, not volume, but low volatility, which is causing price to move less ticks in a similar amount of time. On a typical day, our trade potentially could have been 20 plus ticks. So we had approximately 25%, 25 to 50% less volatility today if I were to give a rough estimate. But oh yeah, what also helped me here today was this volume delta on Bookmap, right? I was using this as a sign of cumulative absorption. And there's two types of absorption that can be found. We have pretend price went down after this, but we have normal footprint absorption and we have cumulative absorption. When put together, they stand as a pretty strong confidence if put in the context of the market. If they are not put in the context of the market, they can stand as quite a bit of noise, and we do not want to get ourselves involved with too much noise. So let's keep moving forward. So now, as you can see, the distribution of liquidity on Bookmap is starting to clear up. We have this region above, which seems to be the only quite really significant area. Of course, you have the 6935 area, which is down here, but we also have the 6952 area, which is interesting. It's up there. There doesn't seem to be any liquidity there quite yet. But that's why we're reviewing the market, so you can see exactly what happened. Okay. So it seems that 6950 was the area of interest for price, not. What is wrong with my. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So it seems that 6950 area was a key level, perhaps not these highs, but when did we take those? We took it at around 950-ish, 850, around here. And interesting, 50 is up here. What am I saying? What am I saying? What am I saying? 6950. I don't know if I'm tripping or something. We have not tapped into 69. We tapped in 6949, which is right here, and that we tapped in right there. Yeah. And then we continue to move up and take up that 6950 liquidity. We're just monitoring price action. We see buyers held this level, they did not get absorbed, pushed up, and now we're seeing a lot of buyers fight to break this liquidity at the highs. Let's see how they do at those highs. And as you can see, it's still a continuous fight between buyers and sellers. Now we saw this. Hold on. We went down and then we saw this induction of passive buying liquidity. And that buying liquidity looks to have driven price up. Yeah, wow. This, let's see if our spoofing order would have been valid here, right? Big spoofing order here at 6951. Price either is really attracted to it, but what we want to see is price go away from it, right? We want to see, and we have this liquidity at 6950, right? So this is very interesting because our spoofing system may actually work pretty nicely for this trade. We were not there in the market, so we didn't take it, but I want to see if this works. Another further test case scenario. So it's pretty perfect, right? What I want to see is that now that this has been introduced, I want to see price head down at least to the 6947 area, and then at that region, I want to see buys start to come in, and I want to see the 6951 region completely disappear. And that's the only thing I want to see. If I see anything else, I'm not going to enter to an extent. So let's see. Yeah, look at this. We saw a crazy selling occur, and we weren't able to recover from that. I mean, we never come down to that 6947 region. We break through those highs. We break through that order. So, I mean, hold on. He removes his spoofing order. Okay. So there's a market participant there. He placed his order there. Who knows if he's trying to market manipulate or anything, but he placed a large order there. But participants were actually heading towards that order and not away. And because they couldn't get their order fills, which I'm going to assume is down here at 6947, simply looking at how the order book looks, I can assume that he is not comfortable to enter shorts up at these highs. So he simply exited right before price tapped into that area. And as a result, we stall around the area. And one other thing, how do we know that he canceled and we didn't break through it? Take a look at the buying pressure there. We only had 485 buy orders there. And how many sell orders were there? There are more than 500. So now what does this mean? This means that lots of buyers have entered in near the top. Or one big buyer participant at least. I mean, nothing to enter there. Simple. I mean, we're seeing stuff with our analysis. Nothing really to take yet, though. So let's keep moving on. Okay, interesting. It's actually very interesting. So you have the 6935 region to the level. That's the only significant liquidity. Now we start seeing selling pressure occur. We swept this upper liquidity, and then we start to see the sell pressure occur, which is showing me that this sell idea might actually be the truth and sells may continue. And how do I know sells are likely to continue? Well, let's take a look at what passive limit sellers are doing. We've came up, pushed above this level, passive selling, inductive. Went down more passive selling. Went down more passive selling. Went down more passive selling. Went down even more passive selling. So what we're seeing is this phenomenon called seller urgency, or whatever anyone wants to call it. I call this barrier momentum, right? Because I call these types of things either, I call the liquidity on Bookmap either barrier or magnets, because there are two types of things. One could either attract price towards it, and one could either repel price away from it. Spoofing orders are types of barriers. Urgency orders are types of barriers. Liquidity levels are types of magnets. Now, I mean, we're starting to see sellers continue to go down, and if you look at the cumulative volume delta as well, we see that buyers, aggressive buyers are above, potentially showing that at this level, cumulatively, buyers have gotten absorbed, and now sellers are in control. So at this moment, I would honestly be looking for shorts, and looking at it here, there could be a potential selling entry location upon proper absorption, right? Smoking is gonna burn. Is gonna be. I want to see if there's buying absorption here. See, potentially an individual may have entered in theory. I don't know if I would have. We do this see this buying spec here, but is that really absorption? Not how we necessarily want. I want to see a more proper value entry, and we start to see that buy orders actually come in like such, and they come into that region there. It's all within this candle. Now sellers come in, blah 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 blah. We've pushed low, below VWAP, and now we're retracing up. Okay, now it looks like a really solid plate, right? We've went down. Now we're going into a pretty solid, solidified barrier. Now I want to see some sort of absorption there, and looking at how it looks here, we might have exactly that. And depending on the extreme, because more buyers entered in here, less buyers entered in here. But this aligns with multiple things, right? One, aligns with this aggressive selling delta block to the T, right? Aligns with that aggressive selling delta block. Two, we see low buyer absorption there, but it's inside of our barrier. Honestly, looking at it now, I would not have entered that. That was very quick. I wanted to see more extended move there, but ooh, that's really cool, because right when we were about to enter this, we saw selling spike in, and then we saw passive sellers spike back in. So it looks like seller urgency at that point. Four, three. I want to see if there's any potential entry there. And then of course we target that lower 3-5 region. Honestly, I don't know if I would have entered short yet. We're at point of control. I want to see a more clear empirical evidence that sellers were getting absorbed. I mean, there's no barrier there. I mean, wait, hold on. Let's see. Yeah, not crazy. Aha, this was the area where sellers were starting to struggle, right? And this is what I mentioned before as well. I remember when I was coming into the market, I came around here, right? So what I saw was that price went up, and now we saw selling action occur, and now sellers are struggling to break below, which we can see using these long lower wicks, right? Again, it's in our V2 level, so longs may not have looked bad there, but we noticed that aggressiveness and passive participants was still towards the selling side, so we were fine. Now, I would love to enter short, but I'm not seeing anything keen to enter short from. See that buying pressure come in there. Buys come in. It's all pretty quick flips, and then there's that. Right now, it looks to be pretty choppy, not optimal conditions. Investment. Tap, 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 tap. See, now perhaps a good barrier break could have been made if you see properties that we can align. Yeah. You enter into the upper barrier, buyers enter into the stand. That's in that selling come in. But honestly, I would not have entered there because cumulative volume delta has turned majorly negative. It's kind of iffy at this point. And buyers are defending really well. So, I mean, nothing that we've missed so far. There were some good potential setups that could have occurred, but none of them occurred. So let's keep moving forward. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep moving forward. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah. So now we start seeing selling come into control now, right? Because why? Sellers are struggling here quite a bit. I mean, so were buyers, but it was a battle between these buyers and sellers, right? And sellers were finally able to break that battle and push below. And that was evident, clear evidence was shown via this, because in the real markets, people could have easily gotten confused for such range breakouts, but there's no real evidence for it. So that's why sometimes for them it works, sometimes it doesn't. But here we have this evidence. So now we have evidence that sellers might continue. And we see that there's significant liquidity lower. So I would bet that before price heads up here, we're going to go ahead and take this lower region out. And that's where my first trade comes in. We see this selling occur. I want to see a retracement where I can get a good entry in. And go ahead and happen to see that very soon. I enter off of a barrier. Where was my entry? Let's see. 89, yeah. My original stop was, hold on, 8 ticks. And I'll let you know where I've entered. Let me just full screen for now so it's easier to see. Right there, I'm pretty sure I entered around here. Might be wondering why. We'll take a look, right? What have we seen? We saw this barrier here. Buyers are able to come, push through, and take it out. But right after we've taken it out, what happened? We have yet another passive seller there at 6940. So we quite literally entered at 6939 targeting the lows, looking to see if price can go lower before we head and break this upper barrier. That was our trade idea, and as you see, at where we entered, we did see a big buyer participant enter, so there was some evidence of buyer absorption. Nothing too crazy, but the idea was not bad at all. We saw that the direction was going to be towards the sell side, and there was pretty good evidence that we're going to take this lower liquidity out. Then we saw barriers, selling participants show urgency. Then we saw buyers show retracement. Then we took out this barrier, but another barrier is holding nicely. Then we entered. Now, if you take a look now we have a much better barrier block, right? All of these happen to be around that 100 limit order range. And it's pretty significant, right? Because if you see on the buy side, it's hovering around 50 to 80. While here we have a consistent stack of 90 to 100 plus. And again, our stop loss is at 6941. So I'm betting that before we get up into this barrier and test out a bunch of it, we're going to hold our original lower barrier level, which is the area with the most passive sell orders, and then continue held down. I did mark down in my notes because it was scary at a time, but we saw that there was a big buy order that did come in. Now, once again, I'm not necessarily worried, right? Because although these big buy orders are coming in, does that really mean that price is going to reverse? Not at all, right? What reason does price have to go up there? Think about it that way, right? Sure, they might want to grab this liquidity, get a better entry before they enter short. But then where would they want to enter short? They would want to enter in locations where there's a lot of liquidity to be dealt with. And where is the majority of the liquidity? It's down here. We do have some liquidity there. We do have some liquidity there. That's where our barriers are. But the idea and everything, it was pretty decent. We saw this barrier. One thing that I do think could have improved, potentially, it was either flat or entering into this trade. I mean, entered into this trade. If we were looking for more absorption here, which of course would have made this trade even more A plus, then it would have been great. Because right now we just saw this retracement into a barrier and support from another barrier. We didn't see any buyer absorption per se, and that to an extent did make this trade a bit less quality. But as you'll go ahead and see very soon, we were able, like right around here, we moved our stop down to break even, so we could cover any probability of loss, even if price does happen to prove strong. And what we see is that price goes all the way down and takes our take profit pretty nicely. Now after that, you're going to go ahead and see that there's nothing really crazy that we could play off of. You'll see that right now. Right now we're chopping all around the place once again. Coming down, coming down here, coming up. And now here, I'm not looking to take any trades. Why? Well, Bookmap is starting to look very, very noisy. And what do we say? We don't want to trade with that much noise. And by that time, it's already 10:15. So our trading session is essentially over and volume is reducing. So no trades would have been made. So honestly, that's the entirety of my market session and trade recap analysis here for today. Today we didn't really have much news. We had FOMC later in the day and earnings post-market. We mentioned this already. So that's going to be all here from me today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below or join the completely free Discord server. Links in the description down below. Additionally, if you want to check out the Orderflow tools which I use and leverage on a daily basis for almost completely free, check out the links in the description for Bookmap Live and Addis, one of our channel partners as well. Addis it is paid to get live data, but if you're trading crypto or anything of that nature, you should have enough features with the free plan. So in a sense, there's a lot of free functionality. What you should be able to do at the minimum is to see and start testing with your strategy if it even works and if it's compatible to an extent. So a lot of free functionality within that for most people. I highly recommend you to check it out. But as always, never any financial advice from me. That being said, that's all for me here today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow if I take any trades for the market analysis session. Goodbye.